Hi, Jim, and thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure, Jimmy. I'm delighted to be here. It's morning where I am. I guess it's evening where you are.
That's correct. So tell me, how are things in Singapore?
Well, the whole world has been closed down, as you know. Singapore has started opening up more and more, but the airport basically is closed. Even if you could go anywhere, and you can't go anywhere because you have to go to quarantine no matter what, nearly everywhere. Not enough flights. So Singapore itself is opening, but the outside world is still somewhat limited because of flights.
And are you and your family able to go out for dinner, go out for lunch?
Oh, we can go. The restaurants are open. Some have closed permanently, but the restaurants are open. They close at 10:30. You cannot have alcohol after 10:30. So, needless to say, by 11 they're all empty. But there are. We go out quite a lot, and shops are open. Everything, many things are open now.
Jim, the last time we spoke was in September of 2020, and a lot has changed in the last 6 months. So I thought it would be good to sit down with you again and get your views on a few things. And in the last 6 months, so much has changed. We've had massive social unrest, political unrest. We still have the all-consuming pandemic. We have a new administration in the U.S. We have $3 trillion in deficits in the U.S. And yet the S&P and the NASDAQ continue to make new highs. I believe they're both up 10% since we spoke in September. And I just wanted to get your views on the current market valuations.
Well, Jimmy, governments all over the world, especially in Washington, D.C., have printed and spent and borrowed staggering amounts of money. If you give me several $1 trillion, I'll show you a very good time. We'll have a wonderful time. We'll regret it someday, but that's what's happening now. They're printing in the U.S. I'll use the U.S. since it's larger than anywhere. We were already the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. Now it's gone up by trillions. That's trillions with a T. It's a good time to be an old American, because we're getting the benefit of all this. But it's not a good time to be a young American. Someday, soon, they're all going to wake up and say, wait a minute, what about all this debt? What do we do now? I've seen many countries go into decline when they do things like this. And I don't particularly like saying it, as I said, because I have teenage daughters. But the future is not good for young Americans.
So you've touched a little bit on the debt levels, but what about the levels of speculation that we're currently seeing? Like, to me, this is like 1999 to the power of 10. Like, we have bubble after bubble after bubble. It's going from one sector to another sector, whether it be EVs or SPACs or whatever. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's not my first rodeo. I've seen this movie before. I've lived through bubbles. I've read about many bubbles. Bubbles are a recurring part of human beings, for better or for worse. The worst part, Jimmy, is that people don't learn the lessons of history. Probably the main lesson of history is people don't learn the lessons of history. This is all a bubble, but they all say, no, it's different now. You don't understand. It's different now. They all look the same. New people come into the market. SPACs, you mentioned SPACs. SPACs are recurring in bubbles quite frequently. It's not the first time we've had a boom in SPACs. So no. All the signs are there that a bubble is developing. Bonds worldwide are in a bubble. Bonds have never been this expensive in the history of the world. Never. Property in some cities, Seoul or some places, is turning. It's a huge bubble. Stocks are beginning. We don't have, in my view, who knows if I'm right, but some stocks in the U.S. never go down. Apple, these stocks, Google, they just never go down. But there are many stocks that are still down and are not participating. In Asia, Tencent never goes down. Samsung never goes down. So it's happening around the world, but it's not, and you see people leaving their jobs. You saw what happened with the short squeeze a week or two ago in the U.S. All these things are signs, but it's all happened before. So as I said, Jimmy, I've seen this movie. I know how it ends.
And how does it end?
Well, it ends in eventually there's an explosion, the bubble pops, everything goes down a lot. Some stocks will go down 70, 80, 90%. A lot of people will lose a lot of money. A lot of people will say, I'm never going to invest again as long as I live. Never, ever, ever. And you hit a bottom and something starts over again until the next bubble, maybe 20 or 30 years later. So I say it's not the first time we had a big bubble, and it's not just the U.S. You mentioned the late 90s. Well, Jimmy, I mean, you remember Kuwait, probably not old enough, but Kuwait, Tokyo, I mean, U.S. in the late 60s, this all happened before.
Jim, the last time we spoke in September of 2020, Bitcoin was trading at or around $11,000. And now in February of 2021, it's around $50,000. So it's up over 300%. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I wish I'd bought it. Obviously.
That makes two of us.
Well, I've never bought or sold any cryptocurrencies. They've turned out to, well, scratch that. Many of them have disappeared and gone to zero, as you know. There were thousands at one time, and they're always cropping up every month. I have never played long or short any of them. Crypto has been a huge success. My view is that if it ever, as a trading vehicle, it's great for whoever knows what they're doing and is trading it. But as I say, many have disappeared, and many Bitcoins have disappeared. I don't know where they go, but somebody steals them or whatever. But if Bitcoin ever becomes successful as a currency, my view is that the governments will outlaw it as a currency, because governments don't want to lose monopoly, don't want to lose control. Again, throughout history, governments don't like other people controlling money, and they will make it illegal. Now, the crypto guys say, we're smarter than the government. Of course they are, but the government's got the guns. The government's got the tanks. Money is going to be on the computer, Jimmy. You cannot take a taxi in China with money. You cannot buy an ice cream. The Chinese are way ahead of the rest of us, but every country is now working on computer money, and it's going to be there, but it's going to be government money. It's not going to be your money and mine. And I would also remind you, some countries have already outlawed cryptocurrencies. India, last week in Myanmar, they closed the internet. Well, if you're sitting there with all your money in crypto money and the internet's closed, you're in a bit of a bind. Texas recently, electricity closed down. Well, if you don't have electricity, you don't have much crypto money, no matter how much you think you have. So there are shortcomings for cryptocurrencies as well, and not just government actions, the world.
So I guess that makes a good case for gold and hiding it under your bed.
Well, I own gold and silver. I would rather buy silver than gold right now because it's cheaper on a historic basis. But Jimmy, I'm an old peasant. All of these politicians and academics say, forget gold, it's obsolete. Maybe, but us old peasants want to have some gold in the closet or under the bed when things go wrong. And so I presume that enough old peasants like me who will continue to buy gold and silver in case.
And so you just mentioned that you prefer silver over gold. Why?
Well, silver's down 45% from its all-time high. Gold is 10% from its all-time high. On a comparative, historic basis anyway, silver is much cheaper. And silver has many uses. Solar energy, apparently solar energy is getting bigger and bigger. You need silver and many things. So silver is just cheaper. But if it were reversed, if gold was down 45% and silver down 10%, I'd say buy gold.
Right.
I'll buy both, but more silver.
So silver is currently trading around $27, as you mentioned. The all-time high was 50. Are you a buyer of silver at these levels?
No, I'm waiting. There's a correction going on. Many like just India is a huge market for gold and silver, and a lot of those people are, for a variety of reasons, are having troubles right now, so liquidating their gold and silver. But I would, who knows? My timing is very bad. I told you, I wish I could time like Roy Newberger could. I'll buy more gold and silver somewhere. I just don't know when.
Jim, I guess the other thing that really stands out to me about cryptocurrencies and more specifically Bitcoin is that there's many well-known investors coming out in support of it. Michael Novogratz, Michael Saylor, Paul Tudor Jones, and Kathy Wood at ARK Investments. And yet we really don't have anybody doing that with gold. What are your thoughts on that?
So what? Yeah, Bitcoin has been a great success as a trading vehicle. There's no question about that. Some of the people you mentioned, I mean, at least Paul, Paul's a fantastic trader. Paul is probably as good as, maybe better than Roy Newberger was, because he's more multifaceted. But I mean, it doesn't, so what? I'll never be as good a trader as Paul Tudor Jones or Roy Newberger. And if they find great trading vehicles, do it. Don't listen to me. But you ask about it. I'm just suggesting to you that if Bitcoin and the others become successful as money, they will be outlawed. But if they just continue as trading vehicles, as long as people can make money trading something, history would indicate they'll keep trading it. Most things, though, that people have traded constantly and forever have had ultimately some economic use. I mean, the Mississippi bubble, 300 or 400 years ago, at least theoretically, there was land in the South Seas that you could speculate in. The tulip bubble, at least theoretically, you could take your bulbs and plant them and have tulips. So most things that have become great trading vehicles have eventually disappeared, if that's all they were. But maybe Bitcoin is going to go on forever, and cryptos as trading vehicles. As I say, if they become successful as money, I suspect governments are already starting to outlaw them. And Jimmy, governments are all working on crypto money, computer money. I said in China, you can't take a taxi with money. They won't. I tried to buy an ice cream in Beijing. The woman couldn't say, she'd never seen money. She was 19 years old or something. She gave it to me, the ice cream, in the end, because she didn't know what to do with money. I mean, now I have, even I have money on my phone now, but it's government money. It's not crypto money.
Maybe in 6 months when I speak to you again, you'll have a digital wallet on there with some Bitcoin.
Well, I have a digital wallet in the sense that I have money on my phone, as I say, but it's money which is governments recognize, not which governments say is illegal. I mean, I want to repeat, in India, cryptocurrency is illegal. Only 1 billion people in India. China, it's illegal. 1.4 billion. So in Myanmar, they closed the internet last week. Close the internet. What do you do if all your money's on your phone and the computer's closed? Texas electricity went down. What do you do if you're in Texas and there's no electricity and all your money is on is crypto money? I mean, maybe you have an answer. I don't know. I wouldn't have. I don't know. If I needed to go down to the shop and buy some bread and the electricity was down, I wouldn't have any money.
I guess you wouldn't be eating.
I know I wouldn't be eating. I can go in there. I can say to the guy, my money's here in my phone. He'd say, I'm sorry, sir. I need money in my cash register. Gold does have an economic purpose. I mean, it also has speculative purposes and it has jewelry purposes, but gold is also used in electronics, etc., as is silver. So even if women and men all of a sudden decide, oh, I can't stand gold jewelry, at least gold still has an economic purpose. Likewise, silver, as I said, solar panels. Silver kills bacteria. There are many uses for silver besides speculative purposes. I hope it doesn't disappear as speculative purpose because I own a fair amount of it. But even if it does, at least I can sell it to the solar energy guys and the electric vehicle guys. They need silver.
Jim, copper has had a significant move here in the last 6 months. So what are your views on copper?
Well, as I look around, commodities are the cheapest asset class. Bonds are in bubbles. Many stocks are forming bubbles, property forming bubbles. Commodities are still, I mean, silver's down 45% from its all-time highs. Sugar's down about 70% from its all-time high. I mean, commodities are the cheapest asset class, and copper's certainly gone up. It's at a 7 or 8 year high. 7 or 8 year high. The Japanese stock market's at a 31-year high, and if electric vehicles are coming, which apparently they are, electric cars use 5 times as much copper as regular cars. Electric cars use a huge amount of metals, and in fact, for what it's worth, electric cars have a horrible environmental footprint because they have all this lithium and copper and other stuff which has to be mined. And of course, you have to make electricity from something, but people don't really think about that. They just say electric cars are environmentally better than petrol cars, gasoline cars.
And what about uranium? Do you have a view on uranium?
Well, I own some uranium just because it got so unbelievably cheap, and uranium. Speaking of environmentally friendly, uranium is very environmentally friendly unless it blows up, But if you manage uranium energy sources properly, it's cleaner, cheaper, and everything else that's certainly than gasoline and coal. So no, I own uranium, and I think America recently passed a law saying they were going to build uranium stockpiles. I mean, various things are going on to make uranium more attractive.
You and George Soros started the Quantum Fund back in the 1970s, and over a 10-year period, you had an astonishing 4,200% return. During the same time, the S&P was only up 47%. What were you trading, Jim, at that time that enabled you to have such incredible returns?
Well, we've traded all kinds of things: commodities, stocks, currencies, bonds, long, short. We went short a lot of stuff. Anything that was legal, whether we thought there were opportunities, we invested all over the world, which was not very common in those days, and certainly not selling short wasn't so common, still isn't. But no, we invested in anything where we thought we could find an opportunity.
And did you use a lot of leverage?
Huge amounts of leverage, yes. Which is, we shouldn't. I should be broke. You shouldn't be interviewed. I should have gone broke 45 years ago. Fortunately, we didn't.
So that leads me to my next question. If you were 25 years old and you were at a point in your life where you could take a great deal of risk, what country or what asset class would you invest in right now and use a lot of leverage?
Oh, I guess I would, if I were 25, I would go into agriculture in Asia or Russia, probably China. Now, of course, you're assuming that you have complete mobility with language and everything else. I would say probably Chinese or Russian agriculture if I were 25 years old in 2021.
So I'm surprised to hear you say that. Like, you're not talking about cryptocurrencies, you're not talking about EVs or SPACs.
Well, SPACs always come around at the end of bull markets. I've explained that we're probably getting near. I can see the end of the bull market, and whenever it is, a year or two. So no, SPACs will not be around when you're 45, 55. unless they have a comeback. No, EVs have a great future apparently, but so what? I mean, I wouldn't be great at it. Besides, there's huge amounts of competition in EVs right now, and wouldn't be a very smart 25-year-old. I hope I'd be smart enough to know. Let me go where there's no competition. I don't want to compete with all these smart people. Let me find where there are not so many competitors. You know, the average age of farmers in America is 58. In Japan, it's 66. Highest rate of suicide in the UK is in agriculture. I mean, Jimmy, more people in the US study public relations than study agriculture. I'm not a very smart person, so I want to stay away from all the smart guys. And I want to stay away from the competition.
Jim, I want to thank you very much for spending time with us today. It's been a very interesting discussion.
It's been my pleasure, Jimmy. Let's do it again sometime.
I hope the next time we get together, we can do it in person.
Hooray, hooray. I do too. I hope I can go somewhere. You can go somewhere.